it's 7 o'clock on May the 18th, 2022. And I called the Parks and the Recreation Commission meeting to order. So let's start with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Stanek?
Here.
Commissioner Kumarapan?
Here.
And Chair Shu?
Here.
And as of right now, Commissioner Swamy and Vice Chair Begor are absent.
And Commissioner Vice Chair Begor will join us several minutes later.
Yes.
So we can start now. So at the first of the meeting, we welcome community members who want to talk about anything that's not on our agenda of this meeting. And if you have anything to say, yeah, please raise your hand and we will unmute you. Okay, I see Lisa Warren want to talk. You have 3 minutes. Okay.
Hi, good evening. So a couple things I wanted to say. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole meeting. I have another meeting. I really am interested in your agenda item. But first, I want to thank Parks and Rec Department and any of you who may have had some influence on it for allowing Zoom meetings to continue as far as classes for fitness, because it's been really great for a lot of us to be able to do that and not have to come into the building or have the classes canceled altogether. So if we can keep that forever, it would be awesome. So thank you for that. If you had any input, I know it was not a quick decision that was made, so there must have been some back and forth that went on, and I'm glad where it landed. And secondly, I wanted to request that you consider having some discussion at some point soon about the naming of what is now referred to as Lawrence Mitty Park. Mitty is a street in San Jose. Lawrence Expressway is just that, an expressway, and it's a county road. It's not in any city, it goes through cities, but it's on our border, but it is not even our road. So it makes little to no sense to me because it's not a very attractive name, Lawrence Mitty Park. And it doesn't even make sense. It sounds like you're in the middle of this awful intersection, which you're just at the edge of this awful intersection. So I've had some discussions with people who say, oh, yeah, shouldn't say that. And there's been some brainstorming and some ideas, and I don't need to tell you those now. But if you could please assist with getting the name to be a more appropriate name for the location and the city in general. And that's it. The number, I'll tell you right now, the number one pick out of the brainstorming, and this is like a dozen people, so clearly there needs to be more input, but the number one pick at the moment is, and it's not unanimous, is North Rancho Park, because the trail will connect what is now referred to as Lawrence Mitty with Rancho Rinconada Park and Pool, which is on the south end of Rancho. So it was thought that gives a direction of where it is, and it doesn't sound cumbersome like some other things that came up. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your nice input. And I think there is an active survey on Lawrence Mitty Park on our city website. If you have this suggestion, maybe you can put it in your feedback so city staff can collect that information and you can encourage your friends to do that. Thank you. So if there's no other people want to talk about non-agenda item, let's go to our item 1 in agenda, update on fiscal year 2021 to 22 city work program item, Blackberry Farm Golf Course assessment.
Thank you, Chair Hsu and commissioners. Tonight we'll be receiving a presentation on the Blackberry Farm Golf Course, future use options. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Camelli, Project Manager with the Public Works Department for the presentation.
Great, thank you, Molly. Can you all hear me out there? Great.
Yes.
All right, let me share my screen here, make sure I've got things set up properly. And let's see here. All right, can you all see that cover sheet of the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
just want to make sure. I thought maybe I lost you for a minute. So good evening, commissioners. As Molly said, my name is Lisa Camelli. I'm a project manager in the capital improvement program for the city. Tonight we'll be discussing the 2 feasibility studies conducted for the future use of the Blackberry Farm Golf Course. We'll also be soliciting your feedback on the next steps of this project. I'd like to give you an overview of the presentation, and I'll apologize now for the robust agenda on the presentation. It's a little bit long-winded, but we'll get through it. First, I'll be providing some background on the site and its operation. Then I'll discuss current issues at the golf course that are compelling the city to look more closely at how the site is used. Next, I'll discuss what actions the city has taken to address these issues and how the project fits into the context of the 2020 Park System Master Plan. Then I'll walk you through some of the detail of each option. Option A includes minor repairs and improvements to the existing golf course, and option B converts the golf course to natural habitat. After I present some detail on these options, we'll look at a comparative cost between the options. And finally, we'll look to solicit your input on the next steps, including the public outreach process. I'm going to turn my laser on here for a minute. So this is a site map of the golf course and surrounding areas. In this view, north is to the right, the far right of the screen, and Stevens Creek Boulevard is the very far right. Stevens Creek is the blue meandering line above the golf course, and Blackberry Pool and associated parking lot are located to the south of the parking of the golf course. The golf course itself is within the yellow boundary. The entire site is approximately 16 acres in size, and about 12.5 of those acres require irrigation. To the north is the existing golf course parking lot, which is adjacent to the main building, which houses the pro shop, the Blue Pheasant restaurant, and the restrooms. Hole number 1 is immediately adjacent to the main building, located here. And the course meanders through the site in a few different directions. And hole number 9 begins about this location, and the green for hole number 9 is immediately adjacent to the existing parking lot. You can see here, this brown area, that is the site of what historically has been a pond used for the golf course, mostly decorative pond predominantly. It was not particularly used for irrigation purposes. The course was built in 1962, and the city took on ownership and operation in 1991. Historically, the course was irrigated using well water with use of a storage tank. But in 2003, the storage tank failed and the irrigation system was converted to using municipal water, San Jose water. Currently, the city uses only municipal water for irrigation, and the average annual cost for water is currently about $63,000. So it's a considerable operational cost. The golf course is immediately adjacent to Stevens Creek. The Stevens Creek corridor is home to protected wildlife and special status plants. The golf course is also within a designated floodplain. The last known flooding on the site was within the last 10 years, although there have been some adjustments to the creek that may prevent future flooding. The historic ponds do not retain water, and it's likely they never actually did. In terms of use of the course, prior to COVID, the course was seeing about 28,000 rounds of golf annually, and the annual average subsidy to the golf has been about $272,000. There are two primary issues that raise concerns about the condition of the golf course. The irrigation system is over 60 years old. There are frequent failures of the main and lateral lines. This can be very costly and waste valuable water. The system is long past its useful life and is very inefficient by today's standards. Additionally, drought-related water restrictions will likely impact the use of the system in the future. And to add to that, the long-term future cost of water is relatively unpredictable. Additional concern on the site is safety. These safety concern issues relate to the accessibility as well as errant balls on the golf course. Over the past decade, the city has taken several steps to address the issues with the golf course. Starting in 2011, the city hired Russell D. Mitchell and Associates to design a new irrigation system. Unfortunately, that project was not implemented. And then in 2012, the city initiated an investigation to renovate the existing well for irrigation. Findings from this study indicated that the well may have limited use due to its potential influence on the flows within Stevens Creek. In 2014, the city focused efforts on completing the Stevens Creek Corridor Master Plan until 2016, when the planning process was put on hold to focus on efforts for the citywide master plan. In parallel to the Stevens Creek Corridor Master Plan, the city hired the National Golf Foundation to look at options for renovation of the golf course. At that time, the focus was on completing needed repairs to the course, as well as looking into ways the course could become financially self-sufficient. No options were implemented. And then that study was put on hold. And then from 2017 to 2020, the city focused on completion of the park system master plan. The master plan is currently being used to guide decisions about park use and programming throughout the city. On July 20th, 2021, City Council, at a City Council meeting, staff was directed to look into two alternative uses of the site. This action initiated the two studies we are discussing this evening. Option A provides minor repairs and improvements to the golf course. Option B discontinues use of the site as a golf course and converts it to natural habitat. The Park System Master Plan was adopted in 2020. As a guiding document for citywide park planning, we are compelled to ask how this project fits within the context of the master plan. The master plan advises that before doing like-for-like replacement of an amenity, we evaluate the benefits. Also, that we review current needs prior to replacing failing amenities. I will also point out that the master plan specifically articulates the goal of increasing ecological value along Stevens Creek corridor. In 2017, as part of the public outreach process for the master plan, the city conducted a citywide survey. There were 939 respondents. Based on survey results, nearly 17% of respondents participate in golf. 67% stated that they walk for pleasure or fitness in nature. 83% noted that improving access to natural open space is important. 80% favored trails and pathways to the favored adding trails and pathways to the existing inventory. And 74% stated that having a variety of recreational opportunities is important. Now we'll look a little more closely at what is being proposed within each option. Option A includes minor repairs and improvements to the existing golf course. This study was completed by NGF. This study contains 4 primary elements. These include the replacement of tees, greens, and the empty ponds. It addresses the primary golf course safety issues. It looks at replacement of the irrigation system, and it assesses the feasibility of restoring the existing well for irrigation. By replacing tees and greens, the intention is to improve playability and drainage. It may also provide an opportunity to marginally expand the footprint of some tees and greens that are undersized given the amount of use the course sees. To reduce initial costs, the tees and greens can be selectively replaced, but the industry standard is to replace them every 6 to 10 years. So reconstructing tees and greens during renovation and installation of the irrigation system is the best use of downtime for the course. Additionally, the empty ponds would be planted with native lowland species and remain empty. The primary safety issues for the course include the need to shorten hole number 9 because errant balls currently go into the parking lot and can be dangerous for unsuspecting patrons. Also, there are localized locations on the course that can be leveled to help with accessibility and prevent people from slipping on steeper slopes. Additionally, netting between hole number 4 and number 6 is needed to prevent errant balls from hole number 4 hitting a person teeing off on hole number 6. The next important item in this study is the replacement of the irrigation system. This would include replacement of all elements of the system up to the existing water meter. The goals are to make the irrigation system much more efficient and effective. This will help reduce cost as well as future use restrictions. Also, replacing the system will limit the potential for catastrophic break of the existing main line. Now I'd like to look at the historical use of water for the site. The table here indicates water use from 2008 to 2013, and then from 2014 through 2020. As you can see, there is a considerable reduction in water use after 2014. On average, after 2014, the city used only 53% of the water used prior to 2014. Given the condition of the existing irrigation system, this is an incredible reduction in use. There were a few things in 2014 that propelled the reduction of water use. First, there were county-wide water use restrictions which were implemented. and the city requested that the company maintaining the site implement water restrictions also for the golf course. The city installed a higher efficiency control system for the irrigation heads at that time. And there was also a considerable reduction in the total acreage being irrigated. Unfortunately, we do not have specific information on the operational reduction, so we can't tell you how many acres have been irrigated over the past 5 or 6 years. It has been considerably, it's fluctuated considerably based on conditions. But we do know that periodically nearly 1/3 of the sprinkler heads have been turned off. This tends to leave large areas of the course brown during the summer season. Now, with a new irrigation system, NGF is projecting water use as indicated in this table. If you focus on the area circled in red, you can see how a new system can help reduce water use while still providing excellent efficiency and effectiveness. On the far left is the total acres being irrigated. We can irrigate more area with less water for better turf quality, or we can target areas to limit irrigation during water use restrictions. If we use a current baseline of 8.5 million gallons for future irrigation, we can supply about 12 acres with adequate irrigation year-round. In times of further water use restrictions, we can easily limit the acreage being irrigated. If we irrigate 9.5 acres of the turf, the city can save approximately 21% of the water over current average. NGF's feasibility study also included a review of renovation of the well for irrigation. NGF's findings and the city's research indicate the following. Due to the well flow limitations, a storage tank would be required for irrigation of the golf course. The volume of the tank would need to be at least 30,000 gallons. The study that was done in 2012 had a limited flow rate of 50 gallons per minute, and there was no pumping beyond 50 gallons per minute. The current proposal that NGF has indicates a flow rate of up to 160 gallons per minute. Unfortunately, we don't know if higher flow rates, such as 160 gallons per minute, will influence the flows in Stevens Creek. So it's likely as a condition of a permit to be able to reutilize the well that we would need to conduct ongoing monitoring of flows within Stevens Creek. Additionally, NGF found that the capital cost to restore the well and add a storage tank is approximately $932,000 with an annual maintenance fee of about $10,000. The other caveat on this is that groundwater use fees have increased substantially over the past 5 years, and we do see increases coming up in the future also. This led us to the conclusion that use of the water well for irrigation of the golf course is not financially or environmentally sound. Just to give you a sense of the estimated costs for option A, the initial capital costs are estimated at $1.97 million. The 25-year ongoing operations and maintenance costs are estimated at $8.12 million, which leaves us with a total of $10.09 million. These costs do account for projected revenues. They are in 2022 dollars and are not adjusted for inflation. Now we'll look at option B, which is converting the golf course to natural habitat. This study was done by MIG. The study for option B was conducted by MIG, and it looks at converting the entire golf course to what's called a native oak savanna. This concept allows for extension of the wildlife corridor and an increase of ecological value within an urban setting. The primary elements of this option include the expansion of the riparian zone along the creek, bioswale planting of the empty ponds, the establishment of habitat islands for planting oak trees and other native plants that will attract wildlife, the establishment of wildlife meadows or wildflower meadows. Also, it's important to note that the existing redwoods would remain on site. The plan would also include trails and amenities for public enjoyment. A final element of the plan includes the addition of 35 to 40 parking spaces to the southern parking lot adjacent to the pool. Some of the benefits of option B include the ability to integrate natural landscape in the urban environment. The irrigation water demand is less than 10% of that used by the golf course. It will provide environmental educational opportunities. It helps create a stronger connection with nature within an urban setting. And it provides essential habitat patches and corridors that ensure the survival of native species in a human-dominated landscape. It's important to note that to provide a fully mature natural ecosystem of the site will take many years, but monitoring and progress of the changes has benefits for environmental education. These photos help provide some context for a conversion of the golf course to natural habitat. On the right, you have an example of oak woodland with trails. On the left, we have the current golf course. Additionally, here's a sample of a not yet mature native habitat island. I believe this is at McClellan Ranch. And to the left, the existing golf course. This is a conceptual plan for the conversion to natural habitat. It includes habitat islands, which are indicated by the small green circles dispersed throughout the site. Also, there's riparian restoration measures, which are indicated by the long, narrow orange strip along Stevens Creek. Planting of a bioswale is indicated by the narrow green strip in the location where the historic ponds are. Wildflower meadows are indicated by the yellow patches on the site. Additionally, there's approximately 4,500 linear feet of walking trails, which are indicated by the white lines on the site. The cost, 25-year outlook for the convert to habitat option B, includes a capital investment of $1.88 million, a 25-year ongoing operations and maintenance costs of $10.22 million, and a total cost of $12.1 million. Again, these costs do include projected revenues, and they do not account for potential grant funding. And they are in 2022 dollars and have not been adjusted for inflation. Now I'd like to show you a cost comparison between the two options so you can see them side by side. This table provides a summary of the 25-year cost for each option. Additionally, it provides an estimate for the total amount of water used for each option. The key takeaways for this table include the following. The difference in total project costs is just over $2 million, with costs higher for restoration of natural habitat over the 25-year period. The average annual O&M cost difference between the two options is approximately $84,000 per year, with costs higher for restoration to natural habitat. Restoration of natural habitat will use less than 10% of the water needed for the golf course. One other consideration as we view this table is that water use costs will likely continue to rise at levels above the consumer price index. This may narrow cost differences over time. Now that we have a sense for what these options include and what the approximate cost will be, we can discuss the next steps. A primary element of what comes next will be to engage the public about their preferences for use of the site. One key element of the public outreach process will be to conduct an online survey to gather information on residents' preferences and concerns about the options. Staff is asking the Commission to provide us with feedback regarding the survey. We'd like your input on any eligibility requirement for the survey, as well as your preferences regarding collection of demographic information. Additionally, we'd like to get your general input regarding the current draft survey. Once a final survey is complete, it will be placed on the city's Engage Cupertino webpage for Blackberry Farm Golf Course. It is anticipated that survey will be online within the next week and will close on July the 15th. This allows about 7 weeks for responses. Currently, the city's public outreach plan includes the following elements. There'll be a citywide distribution of informational postcards regarding the Engage Cupertino site, the project, as well as information about how to take the survey. We currently have an Engage Cupertino website up and running. We will be conducting the online survey from approximately May 15th until May 25th to July 15th. We have a virtual community meeting scheduled for June the 6th. Once the survey closes, we'll be taking the time to analyze the results and public input. Once those results are analyzed, we'll return to Parks and Rec Commission for further guidance, and we anticipate that happening in August of 2022. Once we receive further guidance from the Commission, we will plan to present to City Council for recommendations of actions. We hope to do that in September of 2022. Tonight we have with us the consultants that completed the studies and who are helping us with this project to assist with answering any questions. We have MIG with us tonight. They conducted the work on the convert to habitat option. We have MGF who conducted the minor repairs study, and we also have Cascadia Consulting who is assisting us with the public outreach process. So we'll take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the nice presentation. Yeah, a lot of detailed information. And I just want to announce that I saw our Vice Chair, Bigor, join us. So we have 4 commissioners on board now. Hi. Welcome. Okay, so after this presentation, let's open up the oral communication on this item. If there's any question from the public, please raise your hand. I see Susan Moore.
Are we going to do commissioner questions? Sorry. Generally, we do commissioner questions and clarifying first, so the public has that opportunity to hear those clarifying questions. Sorry. For interrupting.
Confused about the sequence. Okay. Yeah. So it's time for commissioners to raise clarification questions. I see. Yeah, Commissioner Stanek, please ask.
Okay, thank you. I have some questions here, funny enough. So thank you for the presentation. We were really looking forward to getting more detail about these different options, and so I really appreciate all of that. A couple specific questions. For the restoration of the golf course, do you have an estimate of how long the golf course might need to be closed down for that?
So in the conversations I've had with several folks, I have heard that up to a year, but I'll let Jeff Danner, who's with NGF, respond to that.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, that's pretty close to being correct, but it all kind of depends on how aggressive you want to be for a property like Blackberry Farm. It could be anywhere from 9 months to 12 months, including grow-in for the new turf grass. Some courses phase it in, but that's not something I would recommend because it would be less cost effective. So you'd want to go in there and do everything at once and just be done with it so that you're all set to go for the next few years.
Okay, and then on the cost estimate, does the cost estimate include that elimination of revenues for that year?
It does. I did account for that.
Oh, okay, good. I saw that the industry standard is for the tees and greens to be upgraded every 6 to 10 years. Is the cost for that included in the 25-year outlook?
It is, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. And the comparison of the city labor costs between the golf course and the natural habitat. It looks like the natural habitat are much higher on city labor costs, and I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of clarification on why that might be.
Sure, I can tell you what I know, and Molly or Jenny may be able to chime in also. So my understanding is that currently this site is maintained by a private party. The golf course is predominantly maintained by a private party. The maintenance of a natural area would probably be taken over by our grounds crews. After conversations with our ground crew supervisors, there's the assumption that we would need 1.5 full-time persons. And that's based on an average acreage of about 12 acres of ongoing grounds maintenance. Additionally, costs for rangers to manage the site and for safety issues would also add to the cost of the site.
Okay, so the cost for, the subcontracted costs right now, I presume those are eliminated or offset in the budget somewhere, or in those cost comparisons?
So they are accounted for in the golf course in option A. So maybe I'm not quite understanding your question.
So I see that costs are higher for labor with the natural habitat, but there's also going to be a reduction in costs on these subbed out operational costs for the golf course. So is that just assumed? I wasn't quite sure how do we see that in sort of contracted costs go down?
So the contracted cost currently it's relatively low, I will tell you. It's probably underpriced at this point in time, and that may be some of the difference you're seeing. Maybe Molly or Jenny can add to that.
I can tell you that the contracted price right now is about $205,000 a year to our turf maintenance contract, and that has been that contract has been the same for about at least 7 years now, so there hasn't been any increase in it. So we are currently going out to do an RFP for that maintenance, so I'm expecting that to be higher, but we don't really know what exactly that will be until we get that completed.
Right, and I can tell you that I projected an estimated cost of approximately $250,000.
But right now in the ongoing maintenance costs, the costs that are in the 25-year projection are the 205?
No, at 250.
Oh, okay, good. And on the survey, do we have an estimate of what we think in terms of the quantity of responses, what would be a successful survey?
I do not have that answer. I don't know if I would call on either Andrea with Cascadia. She's somewhat familiar with the city and their operation through other work she's done, or on Brandon.
Sure, yeah. I think it probably depends on what kind of participation you've seen in past surveys. But, I think one thing we would just want to make sure of regardless is that we feel like we've had a good representative sample of the community respond to the survey. So I think that's something that will be important to consider as we evaluate the effectiveness of that method.
Okay, and just one more question, and I'm asking this just because I've seen council members ask it in the past, and they've asked it after surveys have come back, and that is, is there a methodology to prohibit one individual from submitting multiple responses? And I hope I know the answer to that, but I just want to get it on the record.
I'll call on Bratton to answer that question.
Yes, sorry about my voice. So we're going to be doing the survey through Engage Cupertino, and we can require someone to register for an account. So we got two options. We can either have the survey open just to the general public, where anyone can make a comment and take the survey without registering, or they can register for an account through Engage Cupertino, and we can require someone to have a account with us, and then it locks them into that account can only do one survey response. So those are essentially the two options that we're looking at. So open to everyone, or only registered Engage Cupertino people can use it, and they can only submit one response.
Okay, so if it's generally open, there's no restriction by IP address or something like that?
No, there is not.
Okay, thanks. I just had to ask that because I know at least one council member asked that kind of a question. Okay, thanks.
Right. And just to add to that, I do, and Brandon can correct me if I'm wrong, if we do have the more restrictive option, many times that influences the number of responses we get.
Yeah, that will definitely hold true here. You're probably, I can't throw an exact number on it, but you're probably looking at getting anywhere from 30 to 60% fewer respondents making people register for an account. So.
Got it. And thank you. And next, Vice Chair Begor.
Hi, thank you. That was an excellent presentation, and it looks like Commissioner Stanek asked some of the questions I had written down here. So, but I do have a couple more with regard to the habitat itself. So I mean, I'm walking that trail very often now, and I just love that trail there. I do have some questions where, with regard to safety, what analysis or what have you done from a perspective of understanding what the safety is? Because you do see signs when you go on that trail that there's rattlesnakes and there's this and that and everything else there, which is great. I mean, that's what we want in a natural habitat. But what has been done from the study perspective on these safety issues, and what is just putting the boards up there relieve the city of any liability, or what can you comment on that?
I would say perhaps Molly has a little more input on how things operate at McClellan Ranch, because it would probably be something parallel to that. We did not get into the details of safety-related issues for the site, for this study. That would be something that would be safe for further study if that decision's made.
I mean, currently at McClellan Ranch, we do have the signage that's out. We notice people, if there's something serious like a mountain lion, we close down the trails. We have a whole policy for incidents that might come up like that. But aside from that, you know, it is a nature preserve. We do expect all of those natural beings to be out there. And we do our best to just make sure that people are aware if there is some kind of threat.
Okay. So I'm assuming that as part of it being a natural habitat, and I think it was mentioned earlier that there would be a ranger on site, or there will be a ranger like 24/7, or is it like just a ranger monitoring it occasionally?
It would likely be a ranger there during the daytime. So currently our rangers work approximately 8-hour days, sometimes longer. They close the scenic circle gate in the evenings. And I would expect their hours to be a little bit longer if we were to go that route. You would probably need rangers who are doing a little bit more interpretive work than what they do currently. So it definitely wouldn't be overnight. I don't foresee that happening. But for a good portion of the day, there would be ranger service throughout the corridor and on the Stevens Creek Trail.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, somewhere up in the MIG report, it said that, you know, they hadn't done a detailed analysis of the costs. I'm trying to remember which page it was on. So can you comment a little bit on the cost that you provided for changing it into a natural habitat, how much you expect, you know, what was the analysis based on, and how much you expect? You know, it's, of course, it was not adjusted for inflation, but besides that, how accurate or not accurate were the costs?
Sure, I can address that. So the MIG report predominantly addresses the capital cost elements, and then that is what's called a rough order of magnitude cost estimate, which is probably plus or minus 20%. And that would be true for both of these reports. Beyond the capital costs associated with the site, I work closely with MIG to get more detail on so for the restoration option, the native habitat option, what we are looking at is potentially hiring a contractor to maintain the site for the first 5 to 8 years of the site. So those costs are associated with that first 5 to 8 years of contracted costs. And then, go ahead.
Just to be clear, though, the contractor costs are already included in the provided, okay.
Yes,
go ahead.
Yes. And then O&M costs beyond that, I worked with our Parks and Recreation folks as well as our ground folks to get estimates from them on full-time employees that would need to be used at the site once it's opened or converted, as well as reviewing the water bills, reviewing the electrical bills, reviewing the sewer bills, taking the averages of all of those, and projecting water use. So one of the things that as I sort of mentioned in my presentation, is that the water use costs are in today's dollars. And as I mentioned, water use costs are likely to increase beyond or higher than or more quickly than the consumer price index. So if anything really influences the difference between the costs, it will be the cost of water.
Okay. All right. So we don't have, I mean, it's still an estimate, but you're saying it is plus or minus 20%. Okay. One more issue with regard to the bioswale that can you put that map back up again and show me where that bioswale is, and with regard to it's basically storm water that goes through, right? So how does that affect, there are a lot of homes in that area. And
Right. So the proposed bioswale is simply a conversion of the existing pond to a lowland area, and they call it a bioswale because that's where water will naturally want to drain to. And there'll be slightly different types of plantings that occur in the bioswale versus the habitat islands, for example. So it shouldn't influence anything outside of the site as far as runoff, stormwater runoff goes. And Taylor Peterson is with us for MIG, if you'd like to add anything to that, Taylor.
Hello, everyone. We just saw that bioswale as a potential feature of interest because it's a little bit different topography and as an opportunity to use a little different plant palette rather than going in and regrading the site at that cost. So that was the thought behind the area we call the bioswale. It's just a little lower area in topography. Something interesting to look at as you walk by on a trail.
Okay, so if I understand that correctly, there's a Stevens Creek, there's a creek flowing through. So will this be close to that? Same as that?
Nearby. It's nearby. It may be hydrologically connected. So water might collect in that lower area and then percolate into the creek. Okay.
And as a result of suggesting that bioswale that comes in, we won't have any additional cost or anything else that was not estimated, right?
No, it's just a way of treating an already existing feature.
Okay, that's all I had for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you. And Commissioner Kumarapan. Yeah. Hi.
I'm trying to unmute it. Okay, I did it. Okay. Thank you. Again, I think very well articulated as well, Lisa, the report, and then how to compare. I was just taking notes, but a lot of things are very clear. So thank you for putting that out and for the consultants worked on those, the detailed study. A few questions on the first one on the golf course side. One, the safety issue, you specifically mentioned that there is general level or uneven terrace issue. So I assuming that is common, irrespective of which option we go, that has to be addressed, I believe. Is that a good assumption?
That is a good question. The way the current design is laid out, and again, this is again a more conceptual plan for the return to habitat option. There would need to be grading of the site and to install things like the trail to help make it ADA compliant, et cetera. So of course, anything that was meant to be walked on would end up being ADA compliant. And then Jeff is with NGF, and he can address some of the concerns that are currently are on the golf course site.
Yeah, from the golf side of things, to bring the course up to compliance with ADA, the changes would actually be quite minimal. There's really only 2 tee boxes that are just a little bit too steep for a lot of people to walk up. And that just requires some very minor grading. Now, there may be some AD issues close to the clubhouse and around the building and everything, but those are things that are going to have to be addressed anyway, eventually. But speaking just from the golf course standpoint, to bring things into compliance is actually a very minimal part of the overall scope.
Got it. Yeah, the question was also, second question I have is that if there is any of those leveling needs to be done, I assuming that the cost is included on other side as well, which is on the natural habitat, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, got it, thank you. So the second question I have, what do we mean by the reduced acre, irrigation of reduced acre? I saw those many options.
Right.
What does that mean? Is it means are we compromising the quality, or if you need it, the minimum 12.5, whatever is the one, but if you reduce it, are we really compromising any of those greenery or whatnot?
Right. Yeah, it gets a little bit confusing, and part of that is the difference in water use prior to 2014. We watered what we wanted, when we wanted, how we wanted. We watered all 12.5 acres or thereabouts. And then 2014 hit, and the company maintaining the course and the irrigation system were asked to reduce costs considerably. And they did an incredible job reducing the costs. So now we have a baseline water usage of about 8.5 million gallons annually. And the way that they've achieved that, they've increased some of the efficiency of the sprinkler heads relative to pre-2013 or 2014. But predominantly, they've turned off heads. So they have stopped irrigating up to a third of the area that they currently irrigate. And that's predominantly the reason we see such an extreme drop in the water usage. What we found from the NGF study is that if we put in a new system, we'll want to put in a new system for the full 12.5 acres of the golf course. And if we irrigate all 12.5 acres of the golf course, we will be using slightly more water, plus or minus 4% more. For us to maintain our current usage, we would be needing to irrigate about 12 acres. And for us to severely cut water usage, we would need to reduce the total acres we're irrigating. And that does mean that you will see, just like over the past 4 or 5 years, you've seen browning of the course during certain periods of time, and we would see something like that also if we reduce acreage.
Got it. Thank you. And a couple of more questions. And in the option A, when we talk about the capital cost of 1.97 million, I think, and overall, you said there is an adjusted revenue. So that's whatever the revenue is already adjusted, because I see the final comparison. Can you call that it is minus revenue? The revenue is already taken into account, correct?
That is correct. So revenue, so actual O&M costs for, let's see if I can pull that up here. Just share this real quick. Can you all see that? Let's see, right here. Are you able to see that?
Yeah, I have the chart in front of me too. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So the question was twofold. One is you adjusted for 25 years the revenue. It's 9.3 million, right? Estimated revenue from the golf course.
Correct.
What's in today, and how do we project that one based on the number of people increasing, or what is the calculation? It's pretty good, significant, but I want to understand what the rationale began. What's the revenue now, and how do we project it for 25 years, and what percentage growth of usage?
Right. So we did not project. So we projected a continued use of approximately 28,000 rounds per year. And you can see on line item number 2, the total expenditure for O&M over 25 years of the repair of the golf course is about $17.5 million. And then we minus out the estimated revenue, which we're projecting, again, because we can't really say it's going to go up, it's going to go down. We are just kind of assuming a steady state of that. So, and that steady state includes the total rounds annually as well as the total water used. So line item 2A, irrigation water costs at $1.5 million, that assumes we maintain an 8.5 million gallon a year average.
And with the cost we have today, with the cost,
yes.
there's no increase to cost is accounted in that, correct?
Correct, yes.
On both the sides, because you took one. Okay, excellent.
Correct.
So the other question on the same, I have two more questions on this, is that city labor cost and the contractor O&M, operation maintenance services, are also put in there as 7 million each. Is that also, we use the same, what's the expenses today, and we just extrapolated for 25 years, or did we put any other measures? Assuming that you used for both
That's
options
correct.
use the same calculation.
Exactly. They both are the same measuring stick, and I did not use labor cost increases, cost of living, or CPI indicators.
Okay. And in the city labor cost, the 9.59 million for the Habitat 1 is a 2 million increase. Is it additional hiring we need to do it to maintain the habitat, or what is that cost? Additional city labor cost, what does that mean?
Right. So the difference between the existing golf course and the natural habitat option is that the natural habitat option would be maintained by our grounds crews, so that those costs become internal to the city in labor costs. So that's the predominantly the number. In addition to that, we have the additional ranger time that Molly was mentioning earlier.
I see. So that's the 2 million plus. The rationale behind the 2 million plus is ranger cost and maybe additional ground staff may be needed.
Correct.
Awesome. And I think I'll like to switch to the option B. The question I have is on the total expense 1.88. It says capital cost. So now I'd like to understand, what is the capital cost of 1.88? I could able to visualize or imagine the 1.97 capital cost for irrigation. Sorry, on the golf side is you will be implementing all those pipes and a lot of this capital one-time investments, right? But
Right.
What is that constitutes a capital cost for the habitat side?
So I'll call on Taylor to kind of walk us through the logic on what those costs would include.
So the predominant capital cost for the natural habitat option are the trails. That's mostly most of the expenditure. And then the other items are creating the habitat islands and planting them, and using drip irrigation and installing that. And what am I forgetting, Lisa? There are a couple of amenities, some benches.
I see. Okay.
And then I think the additional parking at the pool.
That's
this
correct.
includes those 35 to 40 additional parking. That also, okay, that makes sense. So
Correct.
all those infrastructure is what considered into the capital for the habitat side.
Correct. It also includes the removal of the netting and the posts associated with the netting.
Okay.
And fencing.
And some fencing, yeah.
Awesome. No, thank you. That's at this point, I think that's all I have questions now. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
You're on a mute, Chair.
Sorry. Thank you for the clarification. And also, Vice Chair Begor had question again.
Yeah, I just have a couple more questions. I promise it won't take long. The new, looking at option B, where you have the natural habitat, just now somebody mentioned that there would be drip irrigation for some of that habitat, and how long will that drip irrigation continue to be there? And what are the water costs, for that? I mean, that drip has to be connected to some source.
Right.
So
right.
When that correctly estimated in the operational costs? That's the first question, and then go ahead, answer, and then we'll
Sure. So yes, the drip irrigation would be it's the installation is part of the capital costs, and the operations and maintenance costs associated with that are included in the estimates. The water costs is considerably lower. It's cost for golf course irrigation is estimated at about almost 1.6 million. And for the natural habitat option, it's approximately 100,000. So that is accounted for by use of a drip irrigation system. And there were several reasons for that incredible reduction. First of all, the irrigation would only need to take place on or around the habitat islands for up to 8 years. I think the estimate I used was an establishment period for approximately 8 years. And then the idea is that the irrigation system can be shut off or very, very limited.
Okay. Then the contracted services, from the option A, I'm assuming that's, that's the 7 million, whatever is for, mowing the grass and whatever else. What do you expect will be the contracted services for the natural habitat? Just what they are. What are the services?
Right. So this assumes that for that 5 to 8 year period, I'd have to look back at my notes to say whether I probably accounted for an 8 year period where we would actually hire a contractor to maintain to ensure the initial establishment of the native vegetation. That way it can be, people with the right expertise can focus on ensuring the establishment of that period. And that is the predominant cost for the contracted labor.
Okay. And then I guess the last question, which I should have asked earlier, was this: what revenue do you expect to get from that habitat, even though it's $500,000?
Right. Molly can probably address that.
Our assumption is that we would offer a variety of classes and possibly some summer camps out in that area. So that's where that revenue was projected from.
Okay, wouldn't that be part of the Parks and Rec revenue in general as classes? I mean, why would that be specific to it would be a habitat associated class, but why would it be put into this option over here? Wouldn't it be part of typical Parks and Rec revenues? Maybe Director, you could address that.
It would be the same as the golf course essentially, right? So we're saying that the golf course is going to provide this amount of revenue. So we're saying that the new natural habitat would then provide this amount of, the same amount of revenue that we had projected, which I think was about $500,000 over the course of 25 years. It's just that would be just like saying that like McClellan Branch brings in X amount of dollars.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
Right. And I'll add to that, there's a relatively high level of confidence at this point from the folks I've talked to that we would be able to find grant funding for the conversion option if that's the direction the city decides to go. And I just put a number in the comparative cost analysis of approximately $600,000 with the assumption of about a $300,000 grant in the initial construction and then another $300,000 in ongoing grant funding. But those are not, that grant funding is not included in the cost that you'd see. So you'd actually see a potential reduction in total costs.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And thank you. You really asked several questions I had, but because there are so many numbers, I still have 3 questions regarding the comparative costs of the 25-year outlook. The first question is regarding the revenue for next 25 years of option A, the golf course revenue. I just want to know, because in the presentation, I saw the revenue difference for pre-pandemic and after pandemic. So I'm just wondering, this projection is based on the revenue pre-pandemic or after? Because I use this number divided by 25, I think it's higher than pre-pandemic, but lower than current year. So I'm just curious how did you calculate the 9 million and 378,624 dollars?
Right. Well, it sounds like I hit something in between the two. I'd have to look back at my spreadsheet specifically. I think now thinking about it, I think what I did was, pre-pandemic, we had 28,000 rounds plus or minus. Post-pandemic, those rounds increased. I believe the assumption I made in the revenue was a 15% increase over pre-COVID numbers. So a slight increase, but not as high as we see in the current COVID environment. So that's probably the number that you're seeing there.
Got it. Yeah. So at first, I'm wondering if that's because of the inflation adjust, but in the presentation, I saw there's no inflation adjust. Okay, so this is just an estimate. Good
Correct.
To know. And second question, I noticed comparing the water cost between option A and option B. Option A's water cost is about 10 times more than the option B, but the cost is 15 times. So does that mean if we use more water, we get the higher cost, or maybe like the penalty for our city?
There might be someone on the call better suited to answer this, but in my review of the water costs, there are triggers for different levels of water use. That may be something that gets accounted for. Also, water use is not a linear calculation because you always have base costs. So you're paying not only for the water you're using, but you're paying for the entire system to operate beyond that. So that it may not be a linear correlation between the two costs.
Okay. And my last question is about the water cost for the option B, natural habitat. I assume if we plant some like oak trees or some other big trees, the first 10 years, maybe we need to give watering more. But after 10 years, when they have enough shade and when their root goes really big, I assume the water cost should drop dramatically. But in this table, is that included or you didn't consider that just?
I did consider that, and Tay might be able to add to this conversation also. My assumption in this is 8 years of irrigation for predominantly the habitat islands, which are of primary concern, and we want to ensure we get good establishment of the area. So that number you see is an 8-year period of time. And Tay, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just say that you do water a little more heavily in the first 3 years or so, and then you start to taper off so that the plants go deep and find their water naturally and then continue to survive.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much for all the detailed answer. So are there any more questions? I didn't see any other commissioner raise hand. So I think, we are done for this clarification part. And thank you for everyone answering our questions. We did have a lot of questions. Okay, so next, this oral communication part on this agenda item. We welcome our community members who have questions for this agenda item. Please raise your hand. And I see Susan Moore. You can talk. You have 3 minutes. Hello?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I can.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful presentation. Very exciting. One way or the other, this is a treasure for our city and other people. So I appreciate all the work that they've done here. I I want to comment on the survey. I don't have it in front of me. This is just from memory, but one of the things is it talks about very both ideas, and it's very clear, I think, what the true alternative is, and it talks about how the costs are almost the same, but for me it doesn't say anything about the water issue. I mean we're talking about 14 million gallons versus 168 to 212 million gallons. And I don't know how you would state that on the survey without biasing the survey, you know what I'm saying? But I think it's kind of important for the residents and others that use the area to know the difference in the water usage, especially with global warming and everything. And the old Girl Scout in me kind of really feels that's important. So if there is some way of stating that, as I said, without totally biasing, for me, it biases things, that would be important. And the other little minor issue is when you're talking about the Stevens Creek trail, I think it's good for Cupertino to do /McClellan, because it kind of makes it more personal. I mean, so to when you state about there's the Blackberry Farm golf course, there's Blackberry Farm, and then there's McClellan, and they're all part of the Stevens Creek trail. So somehow do a / so that it kind of makes it real to many of the residents. Otherwise, as I said, I think one way or the other, it's all good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your input. And the next speaker is Connie Cunningham. Yeah, you have 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I was very interested in this topic for a long time. I enjoy all the parks in our city. I was very impressed with the report and the level of care that was taken to show both of the options in their in a full light. What I would say is that, and I'm impressed by the outreach that you've done to the community too, as well. I personally have a preference for the restoration approach. The type of outdoor activities my family does are walking and birding, enjoying nature in many ways, national parks, beaches, and other outdoor places. And as an Audubon Society member, I know that natural spaces are necessary as our city becomes more urban. Water is becoming scarce. I noticed the first speaker said that as well. Using California native plants, bushes, and grasses will reduce the need for outdoor watering systems. And the projections, long range, do show that the natural system will use less water overall. And with possible droughts in the future, I think we really need to pay attention to that. Someone talked about adding that to the draft survey as something to be considered, and I think that's a really good idea. Let's see, what else was I going to say? Oh, those habitat islands, including flowering shrubs and native oaks. That's just wonderful, and I didn't know about the swale, if it was possible to put trees near there as well. And one note about the water was if the site is converted to natural habitat, water will be less than 10% that used for the golf course. And I noticed too, you were talking about the amount of people who would be golfing in the future. And as I have read, golfing becomes less and less done over the years. So I'm just wondering if that amount of money being put into a sport that isn't going to be used that much is as beneficial as a place where everyone can come out, especially using the ADA walkways and so forth. So again, I want to thank everybody for their the work on this. This is just amazing, and I think although both solutions sound very good, I do have a preference for the natural habitat. So thank you all for your time, and I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And now, Kevin, do we have any written communication from the community?
Yes, we did receive one. And Jessica, would you like to read it off for us?
Okay.
So we did receive one written communication on this item from George Max at First Tee, Silicon Valley, that I will read out loud. Dear Chair Shu and Commissioners, First Tee, Silicon Valley, FTSV, urges the City of Cupertino and its Parks and Recreation Commission to preserve Blackberry Farm Golf Course and consider improving it in ways that include natural habitats. FTSV develops youth through golf at municipal golf courses throughout Silicon Valley. We teach children important life lessons using golf as a vehicle in our golf course and school programs. Respect for oneself, others, and one's surroundings is possibly the most important core value that we teach. This includes being good stewards of the natural spaces in which golf courses exist. Since 2000, we have positively impacted the lives of over 86,000 children in Santa Clara County, 16,000 in golf course classes, and 70,000 in school programs. Cupertino residents consistently comprise about 5% of our class participants. All youth, regardless of background or ability to pay, may participate. As a result, over 35% are from low-income families and 85% are non-white. Over 90% of our families and school teachers consistently report seeing behavioral and character improvements in their children. We rely upon municipal golf courses for our character building programs and for our participants to develop into lifelong golfers. We strongly encourage our participants to play golf courses like BBF outside of our regular classes. We are a longtime partner of Youth on Course, which subsidies rounds so that children may play BBF for just $5. Silicon Valley ranks near the bottom nationally in golf courses per capita. So we at FTSV are passionate about helping the Bay Area preserve the courses that we already have. FTSV is fortunate to have Rancho del Pueblo Golf Course, East San Jose, Gavilan College Golf Course, Gilroy, and Baylands Golf Links, Palo Alto, as environmentally friendly program locations. All three are beautiful, natural settings for the public and FTSV participants to enjoy. Rancho del Pueblo is certified by Audubon International as a cooperative sanctuary, and Baylands Golf Links is a shining example of an excellent golf course coexisting with natural habitats. We believe that Cupertino, like Palo Alto, has a unique opportunity to enjoy the best of both worlds by improving BBF while preserving natural spaces. This would benefit all residents and give FTSV even more reason to encourage our participants to play and appreciate the natural beauty of BBF. Respectfully, George Max.
Thank you, Jessica. So I think it's the end of public comments. And now it's time to start discussion. Molly, you raised your hand.
Yes, Lisa, I'm wondering if you might be willing to share your screen to the slide that talks about what we're looking for in terms of survey guidance.
Right.
Before we move into discussion.
Sure.
Thank you.
I can share the survey itself, and I think I understand what the requirements are, if that works better for folks.
Yeah, maybe we can start with the two questions we were looking at and then move into the questions.
Sure. Let's see here. Apologies, I'm still learning how to navigate Zoom. Okay. Can everyone see that? Yes, no, maybe. Good, good. Okay, so the two primary questions that we have about the survey for the commission is we're seeking your input on the eligibility requirement. And I think we've learned that there's probably two ways to approach this, and one is to require registration for the survey, and one is to allow sort of anyone to take the survey. And I think we're looking for guidance from you regarding that.
Okay, so yeah, I see Commissioner Kumaropan.
Right, I think this is just a discussion and answering, right, the chair? So there's not a question in the session. Okay, so a couple of things, again, my points maybe related to question as well. So is this available for anyone outside of Cupertino as well, or is it mainly reserved for Cupertino? It is for everyone.
I believe it's for anyone who accesses the survey.
Okay, yeah, so definitely in that, again, I'll leave it to the other commissioners' individual opinion, but this is very, very important if it is being predominantly used here, and I think definitely would like to have an eligibility criteria to set it up, either be an account or whatever method we are trying to do, because opening up a survey without any verification in one way or other, it is going to taint the survey. And definitely if it is mainly for the Cupertino specific one, and others can get benefit too, I'm not saying that not, but I would like to definitely put in some measures to really track or establish some eligibility criteria to do that one. So let me stop there for now. That's my input, and maybe we'll go for a discussion. But I know the account creation, I think earlier one of our staff talked about it. Whatever method we end up in doing it, but I think that's what, even though it restricts the number of people doing it, but otherwise the problem on the other side is completely we have no idea. Recent days, even bots can just keep on going and voting for it and just getting the survey. I can, not me, like in general, people can generate a bot, and the bot can just go and do it in this advanced state, and we don't want to taint the survey like that. So definitely I prefer to have an eligibility criteria to be established. So that's my input, but I'll leave it to that now.
Thanks for your input. And Commissioner Stanek.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I'm not sure what you mean by eligibility to take the online survey. Do you mean only Cupertino residents versus people who work here? What is the question there?
Right. So I think the initial thinking was to try to target or ensure that that only Cupertino residents may be able to take the survey. After having spoken with Brandon, we realized there's limitations associated with that. Of course, we ask in the survey itself if the person is a Cupertino resident, so we're relying on their honesty associated with that. But at this point, it looks like the only two options are to require registration or not, and that the effect of that would be limiting the number of times a person could come in and actually complete the survey. And Branton, if you have anything to add there.
No, I think you covered it all.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, my sense is that we don't want to make it difficult for people. We want as much feedback as we can get. The work program survey that we did, I believe that was limited to, you could take it once. I know that because I know there was a question from council, and so I took that survey and I wanted to expand on my comments, and so I tried to go back in and it wouldn't let me. So I really wasn't trying to vote twice on the work program, but I did know that it did limit me from going in from my computer a second time to redo the survey. So somehow, and I don't think that was a registration. It was just a, do you live or work in the city, and what do you want to see in our work program? It was like 2 questions. It was very simple, but there was a limitation. And so I think we definitely want to know when people are answering the questions, and hopefully, it's on the honor system. Are you a resident of Cupertino? We could have a follow-on question to ask for an address that's optional, just to kind of confirm that. It makes someone think twice if they're going to have to actually go find an address that might be bogus. So that might be one way, but I think we want to make it as available as possible and track who the people are in terms of the responses that we're getting. If we're getting, what I would expect is, as we've seen before, is that there are a lot of people who use Blackberry Farm Golf Course, and they're going to want to come in and say, we want the golf course. And we should know where people are living with respect to their responses. And so hopefully we can track that data. And then are we talking about the demographic data? Are you wondering, do you have suggestions? Or do we want to talk about that in a minute? Get through this eligibility first, and then we'll talk about demographic data. Then that's all I have on that.
Are there additional questions regarding the eligibility criteria? If not, we can move to demographics.
I do have Lisa, sorry. Is it okay? Okay, Chair. On the eligibility criteria, I just wanted to answer.
Okay.
Yeah, question raised by Commissioner Stanek. So typically when you do it, it's the restriction of the next one is tracked by the session, typically. So that means if you are on the same browser, if you're doing it now, generally it will not allow you, because sometimes they keep the session track. But if you close the browser and start again launching, it will allow you to go again, unless otherwise they track. It's not IP level tracking, typically. They don't do it. Rather, it will do on a session level tracking. So if you are on the same session, it will not allow you. But close the browser and go, it will allow you. So I just wanted to put that in it if it's not allowing for the first time. Just an information. That's all. I don't have any specific questions. I just want to provide some insights to Commissioner Stanek's question.
From the commission perspective, for guidance to our project manager here, what guidance are we giving?
Yeah.
I mean, my guidance is to make it as easy as possible and ask additional clarifying questions to ask someone to identify if they are a resident or not, or if they work here.
So
I'd like to hear from the other commissioners.
Okay. So, Vice Chair Bigor.
Yeah, in the first question in the survey says, do you live in Cupertino or work in Cupertino, go to school in Cupertino, etc. So if you're assuming that the person lives in Cupertino, you can ask for an address. If they work, you're still going to go verify. I mean, we don't have a proper way. There's also the option of I visit shops and restaurants and, stuff like that. So I don't know that we can necessarily make this more complicated. So we'll just, leave it to the best. But aren't there any tools? Maybe, we can take, aren't there any tools for sort of sorting out through this? I mean, any survey can now be answered with a bot, right? So there must be some way we can figure this out. Is there a beta version of some tool that sorts through this? Just asking in general.
Right. Yeah. Brenton, I don't know if you have additional input associated with that, or perhaps Andrea Martin may have some.
Not quite sure I fully understood the question. Maybe if you could try clarifying a little bit more for me.
Okay, so the first question on the survey says, which of the following describes you? I live in Cupertino, I work in Cupertino, I go to school in Cupertino, etc., etc. And then there's an option that says other. So technically, even if I ask, I mean, if I'm not a person who's living in Cupertino, for a person who's living in Cupertino, technically we can ask them the address and, you think that we will verify it. So people will try to be honest. But if you answer other, there's no way of us verifying anything about that person, right? I mean, what other? I visit Cupertino, whatever. So in that case, I mean, a person can come in and say other and potentially, create a new session each time and really mess up this thing. Just basically use a bot to answer this question. What I'm asking is, answer the survey. So what I'm asking is, isn't there any kind of tool available that can maybe say, oh, if I've got some hundreds of one type of answer versus 10 of another type of answer, isn't there any tool that does some kind of an analysis and say, well, this is a bot, this is not a bot kind of thing. This is a bot answer, this is not a bot answer. Is there such a tool, at least a beta version of it, something you can test with? Because this is going to happen with any survey, right? People like something, then they can potentially create a bot that answers the way
they can answer if Brandon and others if you.
Yeah, I'll just comment on Engage Cupertino. So when we run the reports, we can go ahead and see pretty much all the responses and can filter everything out. There's no tool on Engage Cupertino, at least a survey platform, that goes through and specifically targets bots or tells you if it's a bot. I will say in our previous surveys, we haven't come across anything that does look like it's bots or piling in responses to any of our surveys. That's about as far as I can probably comment on that. There might be external tools that you could use for this, but I'm unaware of them and haven't used them. So,
Commissioner Chair, if it is okay, I want to jump into answer.
Yes. Yeah, please.
Thank you. So, Brandon, and maybe to answer to Commissioner Shu's one, it's like a gotcha, and many other alternatives have come in any survey tool you have. It's so easy to just put it there to stop any of them. So it's for overall, for city, getting the right type of inputs, and even avoid the DDoS attack where it can bring down the site to, in case if any people wanted to do. So there are ways which are very simple things to implement, which definitely I can help. And Brian and I would work with the city or the team, Engage Cupertino team on implementing such a simple thing could avoid this bot problem. And because that is becoming a problem everywhere, and I think we should take some action, and it is not at all a major problem, and there are simple ways to just enable, so it's a human. Like we all see that whenever you go and take some survey, it says, okay, find out what are the street lights, what are the boards, what are the things. It'll ask you, there are many different types of things can be included so that the bot will fail miserably, so that we can get the right input. It's simple, it's easy to implement it, and we should start putting that. Otherwise, the site will get. So again, I'm happy to work with the staff, Brandon, you, or Engage Cupertino site, whoever it is offline. I'm come from the tech world, and if it is any help needed, I can guide and do that too. Just want to put that suggestion on the table.
Okay, thank you. I do see Andrea Martin, who's with Cascadia Consulting, who's assisting us with the public outreach on this, has her hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. My understanding is that the survey will be hosted on the Engage Cupertino site, so I don't have as much insight into that particular platform, but I do know in the past, one approach that we've used is tracking IP addresses and identifying if there are multiple responses coming from the same IP address, and using that as a way to flag and filter out foul play, and then also looking at the date and time stamp of the survey response. And if you're getting, a bunch of survey responses at that exact same day and time, then that can also be a flag. So I don't know if that's possible in the Engage Cupertino platform, but that could be one approach here as well.
Brandon, do you know the answer to those questions?
If Engage Cupertino can track IP addresses, I'm sure it does track them, but I don't know if we have access to that data. So I'll have to look into that and follow up.
Okay, thank you. Great. Are there any other comments associated with eligibility?
Yeah, I have some comments. So regarding the Susan Moore mentioned for the question regarding the cost, and she said, because in the survey, we only let residents know the cost of option A and option B about almost the same, but we didn't mention the water assumption and the water cost for two options. And is it, yeah. So is it possible to add this information for this question? Yeah, I'm so wondering.
I don't think it's a problem adding that information. We would want to do it in a very straightforward, sort of non-comparative way, but there's no reason we can't add that information.
Okay. And I see Commissioner Stanek has something to say.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to comment with respect to the bots. I know we think we're very important, but I don't think that these kind of surveys are that high, huge interest that we're going to get people generating a lot of bots to do it. So I don't think it's a real practical problem. I know it's something that the council is concerned about. So we always want to be sure that we can answer that question from them. But, and I think if you have 2 or 3 responses from the same address, it may be that 2 or 3 people from that, for that IP address, maybe 2 or 3 people in that home are answering the survey. And so that would be appropriate. So from a practical perspective, I don't think that it's a real practical problem, but I think we should just be aware of it and be looking for it. I agree with Chair and the comment from Susan Moore that there should be a comment about the water usage difference, and I think you have to compare. I don't know how you can do it without being comparative. There's this option and there's that option. We're looking between the two. So the other thing, and I have a number of other comments on the survey, but I don't know if you just want to go back to your slide where you talk so that we can stay focused on that and then get to the survey question.
Sure, we can. Are you still seeing that slide, the public outreach slide there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the other question that we wanted to garner some input from you on was the collection of demographic data, and the 2 primary data points we would be looking for would probably be age and then ethnicity, the 2 that we're considering adding to the survey. Just like your input on that.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't think those are onerous questions.
Okay. The same year, sorry, Chair, I raised it to answer the same question.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be the controversial one here. Why do you want to know that? Simply. I mean, it's a survey. You want to know what's going on. Why do you want to know what the age of the person is or what their ethnicity is, their ethnicity? I mean, whatever. Why do you want to know the question? And secondly, what are you going to do with that data?
Right. Well, the question is up for debate. That's why we're here discussing it. So I don't think the city is an investment one way or the other about which direction we go. It just seems to be a common question that's asked in surveys. As far as the benefit of it, it just helps us sort of increase the particle size of the input we're getting, essentially, so that we can granulate, okay, where are these responses coming from, and who's what demographic is most interested in one versus the other. But is there an overall benefit? I think that's up for debate.
Okay, and Commissioner Stanek.
Thank you. I guess my comment on that is collecting it, not that you would do anything with it, but it would tell you if you had a representative sample of your population. And so if it's skewed, and maybe not the, well, I mean, it could be. If you get, certainly on the age thing, if you get primarily an older skew, then you'll know that you're not getting a cross-section from the whole community. And if it's primarily one particular race that is not representative of the whole community, that you say, well, that particular subgroup is more engaged in this particular thing, but it's not necessarily representative of the whole community. So I think it can give you that information, and you can make a judgment about it if it's important later or not, but at least you have the information. Otherwise, if you come at it and you didn't ask the question, then you just don't know. That's my thought on it.
Okay, it's fair. That's a very fair answer. But my thing is so this is a survey that we're sending out to, it's on Engage Cupertino, and we're going to send postcards to everybody in Cupertino saying, take the survey. Only a certain race decided to take the survey. You can't make the other people take it. So getting that is a data point for sure. But, or certain age group, all those people that play in the Blackberry golf course may be the only ones that participate in the survey. But then we don't know that for sure. I mean, we might be able to get it, but from age and from race, we don't get that information. We get that from the survey itself. So I'm just being, like I said in the beginning, it's like, why do you want to know? Half the problems in our world is because we try to put classify. So is that giving us some quantitative information that helps us make a decision? If not, why ask the question is where I'm coming from.
Commissioner Kumarapan.
Thank you, Chair. No, the reason rationale behind I said yes, it's okay, is twofold. Number one, once we collect these age group, whatever, we know that it is going to help feed the program, whatever option A, B are picked up. We know that when we talked about what kind of programs we are going to put together in Habitat or any of them. So at least it is in a data to that, okay, these kind of programs are going to attract these many people. So we talked about revenue, we talked about more amenities. So it is a good data to help us to drive how we plan to invest, how we wanted to do either of those. So in that part, the age will be really useful, at least for the park staff and for their planning and future planning of those things. That's a first reason why I asked. The ethnicity, the reason I asked is that, again, we talked about low-income families and other ethnicities in general, the previous report. It will be good to know that who really loves or which area are represented, as I think Commissioner Stanek talked about. It's a good thing that if it is not reaching out to, it is again a data point for the staff that based on the prior history of the surveys, we may not be reaching out at one particular set of the people and stuff, and then at least it gives a data point. It's not, first one is to make a decision on future investment. The second one is to see that how our outreach is really going on, to see are we really doing the outreach. If not, if that we need to do it on a different language. For example, if you have to put only in English, do we need to put it in China? Do we need to put it in Spanish? All those things would help. And if the survey is handling in all of them, it's okay. So that's how I see it, is just to serve the community more, second point is not to make any decision, but to serve more for the outreach. The first one is to help make a decision on our future investment. That's just my rationale behind making that, saying that yes to both. Again, everybody's opinion is correct. So I'm not saying well, something is wrong or something. I just want to make sure why I said that both are, if both are good, there's nothing harm in it. So that's my point, Chair. That's pretty much it.
So for me, I have a question about what kind of demographic data you're going to collect in this survey, because in our past survey for parks, I only see some question regarding the age, but I didn't see any other information collected. So I'm wondering, when staff ask this question, do we need to collect those data? What kind of data you referred to?
Right, I think we're referring specifically to age and ethnicity. And I cannot address, maybe Molly or Jenny knows more about the survey process for the master plan and what, with the specifics of that. So we would need to look into that a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, because from my point of view, I only remember I was asked about the age, but I didn't remember any other information was asked. Okay, Commissioner Kumarapan.
You're muted.
You are on mute, it looks like.
Sorry, yeah, I did. I lowered the hand but forgot to unmute. I think this is an optional, I believe. We are not mandating it, correct, in the survey. Both are optional. They can ignore.
Yes, I think that is an option.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, so for these two questions, if no further comments, I'm wondering how can we decide for these two? Does someone need to make a motion for the first one, the eligibility to take online survey? So the question should be focus on eligibility, or maybe focus on what kind of different ways checking the eligibility. How can we, take the motion? I'm wondering. Oh, Molly, you have some suggestion for this?
There's no vote needed. We just need clarification on where you stand as a commission and how you'd like us to move forward in terms of how we collect the data. So do you want us to do the registration system? Would you like us to move forward with adding an address to the survey? Do you want to make it as easy as possible and not add any of that information? That's kind of what we're looking for specifically.
Okay, so Commissioner Kumarapan, raise your hand.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, I was thinking that you know what needed, but I think you need an input from us so that you can go back and see what constraints or things you have to do it. Again, I just want to reiterate, maybe later we can summarize it. Chair can help. But definitely putting some kind of a mechanism to track is really important. It need not be, again, whatever way it is, it's IP tracking or whatever is feasible, because I don't want this to be dragging down our staff to go on the survey for another 2 months, 3 months. No. So you have a strict timeline to go to get it done, but completely opening wild way of doing it is definitely I won't prefer. We should have some mechanism to track so that we are accountable. Again, collecting address, all of them may be so intrusive, so we don't want to go that path, but at least some level of tracking to be doing. What that level, I think as I said, I led the Engage Cupertino team, and Brian, I think, were there. They will work on it, but let's not go completely wild open. That's input from my end.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Vice Chair Begor.
I have exactly the same comments. I don't want to make it more complicated. We want as many people as possible to take the survey, so we don't need their address or anything else that will prevent them from taking the survey. However, there must be simple ways to fight this, not let it out in the wild, literally, as Commissioner Kumarpan said. There are simple little things that we can do, and we should be able to do that technologically to prevent this problem. Now, if somebody from the same household has 4, 5, 6 people, that's fine. I mean, they all obviously use one thing or the other. They're all residents and they have a right to give that opinion. That part is okay. But beyond that, I mean, there must be simple ways to fix this and not just let it be, widely focused on. No letting a bot just do something for, giving us rubbish data. So we'd like to have some controls, nothing too severe that stops the survey from coming out and or people from taking the survey.
And I kind of agree with this. We should make it easier for people to take the survey, but we can still do some tracking in background to check. Maybe if there's more than 10, then they take the surveys many times from the same IP. That's very fishy. But when on the survey, we don't need to add extra limitation to make it too complicated. And I also wondering for the first question, do we need to make any change? Because the first question asked living in Cupertino. So this one, should we make it simpler or just keep it this way? You don't have further question. Okay.
Can we put that question up?
Let's see if I can.
I think the Vice Chair Bigor had a question on the first question in the survey.
It's in the Appendix F, draft online survey questions, and it just gives you all the details. I'm assuming off this.
Yeah, I can pull up. This is introduction here.
That's the first question.
Let's see, which of the following describes you? First question.
So under the other, it says, please describe. Is there a free-form place for them to describe there?
There should be. We should be able to offer that.
There should be. So I guess they would describe it so we could see it. I mean, this is pretty standard stuff that I don't think we want to be reinventing the survey process for the city of Cupertino. That isn't, that's not practical for, I think, us as a commission to be asking staff to do. So I think they need to work within the systems that have been provided, and they're looking to put this online very quickly. So I think it would be nice to have some of these things, but I think we need to be practical in what staff can actually provide. And, we just need to recognize or ask staff to give their best shot at doing some of these things. But I don't think we can dictate the systems that are in place. Systems take a lot of work to create, and Cupertino has put together Engage Cupertino as our process. So I think that first question is fine. I have a number of other comments about the survey that I'd be happy to comment on at some point.
Okay, so let me clarify. So the two questions raised by staff, we've already finished the discussion on the first one, the eligibility to take online survey. Is that right? So for the second one, I think we agree that we can add this, the question about those to collect the data, but that's optional. So the discussion for the second question is.
Chair, I think Commissioner Kumarpan has a comment.
Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Kumarpan.
Thank you, Chair. So I understand. I think I just want to just add on to what Commissioner Stanek said. Understand Engage Cupertino has whatever put in. That's why I made it clear that they should work on it. But at the same time, outside threats are increasing day by day. That means our system has to be up to some extent to avoid. That's the main reason. So if we are still on the same infrastructure and nothing touching on it, and then it will get exploited because outside is moving. That's the reason I said some measure should be done, not really push it for 2 months, kind of. And so we need to be, given that in the area I'm facing on a daily basis at work and others, outside threats are increasing hourly basis or even not minutes. So we need to be a little more careful on updating it regularly. I'm sure the staff is doing it. I'm not undermining their capability, but any inputs we can offer to do it to just to strengthen the data collection is the rationale behind it. It's just a strengthening it so that we do. That's the only reason I made it. Then I have a comments on the thing. Maybe, Chair, I should wait once we discuss the survey type. I do have some questions, but I'll wait.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we already reached an agreement on these two questions raised by staff, and then we can focus on the survey itself to give comments. Yeah, if no objection.
So I guess I'm curious. I don't know what we decided on the demographics. Did we agree to have both the age and the ethnicity, or one or none of them? I would be fine with maybe not the ethnicity and just putting the age. I think that is more relevant.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But
coming back to the point with regard to what we're before we talk about the ethnicity, the other demographic question. What is the final answer with regard to eligibility? We're just saying our recommendation or our to the staff is basically put some kind of, as to use Commissioner Kumarpan's words, strengthen the security of the survey. Is that the recommendation? Did I paraphrase anything, Commissioner? Or do you agree? And do we want to make that recommendation? Let's be clear about that first. And then we will go to the second one, which is the demographic.
I'm clear on the first one. As we said, we don't want to wildly open, and we want to put some way to enforce some of the eligibility or the checks. It's up to what the staff limitations and stuff we have. And if they need any help or guidance, happy to provide. That's where we stopped on it. I don't think that we're anything on the demographic. I do agree that if collecting ethnicity creates a concern in general, I'm fine, but age would be really useful, a very good data point for us to plan for the programs. That's what I would still stand on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
right. And if I could just interject, just regarding the eligibility, and Brenton can help me out with this. My perspective is that, Engage Cupertino offers two options. One is to register to take the survey. The other is open-ended. The other option would be to try to engage either in a different survey platform or to work with the commissioner to try to strengthen the tracking on that. So there's kind of three options I see at this point. The third option would probably delay the release of the survey.
We don't know that for sure, right? We don't know that it will release it. We've just assumed that there isn't a way to do that. And the thought process should be, is there a way to simply do it? Yes, no, or if no, why? At least if we have that answer, then we know what we're doing, as opposed to getting a blind survey where we have really no idea who answered the survey. So just that third option should be there. And if it is not going to fit in the time scale, going forward, next time we do a survey, we need to make that as a requirement, but that's aside. But right now, we need to get that answer, whether that is possible or not possible.
Yeah, Lisa, if you don't mind, I can jump in. So pretty much the options currently are no registration, the survey is open to everyone. 2 would be the survey requires registration, so you have to register, have a Engage Cupertino account to be able to take the survey. The third option, which I don't think we can address, Engage Cupertino doesn't do like the IP tracking that I know of. I would have to look into that. I can't confirm that it does have that and that we could use any like additional strengthened security measures. However, one thing we could do would be to have the survey be open, ask the first question, which is how do you identify? I live in Cupertino, and then potentially do some additional security questions on top of that, like ask about we could ask about address, age, and gender. This way too, if when we're looking at the data, we could pull up the data and see if there's any like very obvious someone inputted like 5 or 6 entries, because that data should be relatively varied, would be the assumption.
Right. It does seem as though it's something we need to look into a little bit more. We can report back on that.
Yeah, I would say I think we spent time on it, so it'll be good for the staff to go back and ask the request if there is third option available or not. If not, it's okay for the time frame. But what is it we plan to do? That's a request. Is that to strengthen or to add additional thing? That's pretty much. I know you know better. So again, we don't know the exact intricacies within the infrastructure on the platform you have, but it'll be good to get a response back to us, to the commission. What is it we plan to do? At least that would help. I think maybe I'm looking at Molly or others to track it down and let us know. Brandon, if you're the one going to be responsible on this survey, then it'll be good for us to know what we have. In an email update, that would help.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
So I guess then we can move on to the second part of it, which was the demographic question. Sorry, I'm being a stickler about this, but.
Okay, I think we decided, sorry, Chair, I'm just jumping in before raising hand. I think we decided that definitely age would be help. I mean, not decided, we thought that age was okay, ethnicity we can drop it out. If that helps, is the pain or is the concern? I would at least want to go with age.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I see Susan with your hand. If you have anything.
Thank you.
To share.
I just want to ask, clarify the intention of the commission. Is the commission saying that we should not move ahead with the survey until we've sorted out the security tools, or that we can proceed, but we will also check into the security tools? I think it's a good suggestion. I just want to see, I'm seeking, I'm afraid that it would delay the output of the survey for a couple months if we had to rectify to answer that fully.
I think what I heard was that we don't even know what it is. So it would be nice to figure out, at least, is there a quick, like a, ask of the IT department, is there something that you can put to make this a little bit more secure? Yes, no. That answer, if you can come back to the commissioners, then at least we have an idea of what to expect, right? Right now, we're going totally blind.
Okay. So in other words, for the purposes of trying to figure out the content of the survey and trying to launch it, we can, the preference that I'm hearing from the commission is that we can proceed with not getting registration, but simultaneously we would seek to better understand and implement better security tools to the best of our ability. So that is something we can find out about and follow up to the commissioners about.
Okay.
Thanks.
That sounds good to me. I think it's really a best efforts thing at this point for this particular survey. And because even if you go find out, we're not going to have another meeting before you're looking to launch this. So we need to be practical about what we're expecting here.
Yeah.
And
yes.
So, I mean, I'm sure we'll hear about that at some future point, but it should not be a gating item for launching the survey.
For sure,
The
it's not a gating,
clarifications.
for sure, it's not a gating item, but definitely an email out to the commissioner saying, "Hey, this is what we found out," before they put the survey. It's just information. It's not too much effort, I don't think.
Agree. Okay, so maybe Chair, I think the second also we answered it now. I believe people are okay just to go with the age. I think
Yeah, I think for the first one,
Yes.
yeah, it's done. And for the second one, we already agreed that we can collect those data, but these data are optional. So for on this point, we already agreed. But now the question is what kind of data we are going to collect. So we need the input from staff. That's what my understanding. Is that right?
All right, Chair, I think that's what we said. The data is, they said 2. And then we said, let's pick 1, which is the age. We can skip because there is from a commission, there is a concern on collecting ethnicity. I think the recommendation is just to collect the age. Done.
Okay, that sounds good to me. So if no,
I agree with that.
I agree with that too.
Good. So if no further comments, we can focus on the survey itself and provide comments. And excuse me. So Lisa, could you please share the survey, share screen again, so we can provide comments. And Vice Chair Begor, the first.
Yeah. Okay. I would like to add one more question. I'm not going to wordsmith the question, but the information I would like to have is one more question that says, do you play at Deep Cliff only? Do you play at Blackberry Farm only? Do you play at both? And a space to say, any further comment of why you prefer one or the other, or you play at both. I would like that information. I want to know how many people play at both. I think it'll be useful for those that play at Blackberry Farm. We should maybe think of finding some way for Deep Cliff to give them a discount. All that is different, but that information will be useful. So I think we should track with
Oops, we cannot hear you.
We lost you.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you.
So I'm not sure. So I repeat the question. I have no idea when I was lost. So.
You mentioned you want to add one more question.
Yes, I want to add one more question that asks people, do they play at one golf course or the other, why they prefer one or the other, or if they play at both? The details of I'm not wordsmithing the survey question, but I want to get that information.
I think that's a good addition. Does anybody else have comments on that? So we don't lose it. We can kind of get
agree. That's a good one. Agree.
Okay. And Commissioner Kumarpan?
Yeah, well, on the survey, we earlier talked about adding water specific usage and whatnot. And since the comparison chart we put together today is a public record now, what is stopping us to refer that or mention it? People can just refer. I know they may not be able to go to we can refer both. If you want to have a complete presentation on all of them, they can click and see that before they answer it, because these are the data you are providing to the community members, because not everybody is attending it today. So, and it is a public record, so we should be able to provide that. And possibly the second is, if they need a specific one on it, we can just put the chart alone, because they want to know, okay, I'm planning to do, what is it cost and what it is. they will figure it out. What is the water cost, all of them from that itself. So I think that's a summarized view you have on the budget. I think that would be my recommendation. I know there were a lot many questions earlier on that one, especially your community member also asked about it. So I think that should solve some of those ambiguity in it. Are we exposing specific to that or not? Are we biased kind of? I think that should all go. Entire is record. So they can refer to any particular. That's the only input I have for now.
Yeah, I just want to quickly comment, actually, there is a place there that we can add this chart to, or maybe make up the reports. If you can, Lisa, bring the other page of the survey up.
Let's see.
For the questions, the setup of the whole survey. No. Just the Appendix F, the first page of the Appendix F, or Attachment F. The other page of this.
Okay. Let me.
You talk about the intro.
Yeah, I'm talking about the
intro. We're trying to engage everybody.
This here.
Say that again? Yeah. Okay. So down there, they say if you want to see the details of the reports, it's here. You can review the reports for each option and sign up for an email right at the bottom of the page. So there you can actually put that comparison chart. So it makes it easier for people to make that decision of which one they want. It's right there. So it's just add another link.
Right. So are you saying to include the entire chart, the cost estimate chart, correct?
Yep.
It is public record, yeah.
Yes, because instead of calling out only the water one, you never know, right? So people may want to have a good picture of it. Otherwise, it is, yes, I do agree. It could be a biased one. We are asking them to take it. But let's expose all those.
So that means put the detailed form on the web page on Engage Cupertino site. But it won't take any space on the survey. Just people who want to know the details, they click, and then they can see the detailed table.
Right.
I think it's unrealistic to expect people to click the link. I don't think people will click the link. So that's why I think having something in the survey helps.
All right, put the image here. Don't give a link for the table. If you're giving a table, provide the table. It's easy for me to make a call rather than, I'm not interested in going through the entire report. If they want it, you can give a report link. But the table can be easily embedded in that information because that really gives them more data.
I was just suggesting that if they want to make it simple, you can put a link. You don't want to go through the link with the picture, that's even better.
I think a picture, and I think you still want links to the full reports for those people who have that inclination, because you're going to, if you have the chart alone, you need to have the caveats of it doesn't include the the increase in water costs. It doesn't include the potential grants. And so it's very difficult to convey complex information in a simple survey. But I think we need a little bit more information here. And one of my biggest concerns about the discussion or the description of the options is option A, golf course, minor repairs and improvements. So when we were talking about this option initially, it was with respect to the other option, which was a full-blown, state-of-the-art golf course. And this was the minimized version. But when people hear minor improvements, they're not thinking $2 million. And so I think we have a real semantic problem with continuing to call this minor repairs and improvements, and in other places, minimal repairs. It's throughout the whole thing, but I really think it gives the wrong impression of what the scope of this project is. I think people say minor repairs, good, let's go do it, without understanding it's $2 million initially and $10 million over 25 years. And so, we need to somehow convey that something has to be done. Status quo is not an option. So you have to vote for one or the other.
Yeah, necessary repairs, kind of something, rather than just putting.
Yeah, necessary. Yes, necessary repairs and necessary repairs and safety improvements. These are necessary. And so I think that is, and take out this concept of minor or minimal, because these are not minor and minimal. They are with respect to something that we're not comparing it to anymore. And so I think that's very important throughout the whole discussion of on the survey and in the report. I mean, that was the direction we gave. And so I don't have any problem with the fact that that's how it was referred to, but I think we're in a different place now. And so I think that's really important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I agree. I think the minimum repair was comparing to other repair options in the past, maybe 2014 or 2016. Yeah, in that version, that's why we call it minimum. So now it's the only option for repair the golf course.
So I guess the first thing we would do is the golf course, option A is necessary repairs for the golf course, instead of calling it minor repairs and improvements.
I think Susan has her hand out. Maybe she'd like to comment on that.
Thank you. Thanks for, first of all, I want to, before I forget, before the evening goes on too much, just thank you all so much for actually getting into the details of the reports and the questions and everything. Really appreciate the investment that you've made. So I appreciate that. It's an important part, and your input so far is great. I'm making notes. I just wanted to note the difficulty of changing names of things. I think that it's actually a very good point, and especially for the survey itself, to get it to rename it so it has a different tone. But I wanted to just insert a little bit of caution. We, at this point, it would be very difficult to rename the project and the survey and the study because of the references that have come along that are it's in the city work program, it's in the CIP. So I think it's actually it's good feedback, and to the degree that we can, I think we would implement it, but there's going to be some limits to it.
Chair, can I make a comment on?
Yeah. So Commissioner Kumarapan have some comment.
Yeah, Susan, I understand, acknowledge, but this is not going to be a major one. And even if it is, I think they're sending a wrong message. As Commissioner Stanek said, I really wanted to see this changed. I'm not sure what are the other references you just mentioned, but these are all the way in which we present and absolutely will go. So I would like to make sure that this gets really addressed. I don't want to call as minor, which may downplay the things on it. So it is out of context, it is being referred, and what Commissioner Stanek brought up is really valid point, and I want to support that. We need to call that out. And if that needs, I'm not sure what are the changes to be done in that report. The report can say minor on it, but at least on the survey and on my face, I want to say it's a necessary repair. That's how it has to see it. And even the table, we can modify it. It's a report, but the changing from a minor to necessary, I'm not sure what is going to cause a major change in our process. And if that's what I'm hearing, sorry, I think we need to make it. And I'm not sure what is going to delay.
I don't disagree with you. I would just, I think we can take that and run with it. There may be some hiccups and there may be things that we can't take it to 100%.
Yeah, the team can come back to us, Susanna. I'm personally, I'm not going to approve it if that's not changed, or somebody comes back and say it has 1 month of effort to change from a minor to necessary repair. I will be really, really surprised. And I wanted to see that one because this is important. And we want to send the right, because we know it. That's why the comparison, and even I forgot on that particular reference. And it's a very important point. So we need to send the right message. And I'll be surprised if somebody comes back and says it'll take a month. And I want to know why and what.
Okay, we'll note that and try to move on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, if we go back to the questions, do you want to go ahead, Chair?
So yeah, my comment is, so this name change is only for the survey when that word minimum minor appear. So I don't think it affect all the document in other place. Yeah, so only in the survey. Yeah, that's why we think it's a simple change. Yeah, it doesn't mean we need to change all the documents refer to the option A and option B. Okay, yeah, Commissioner Stanek, you can continue.
Okay, thanks. If we go back to the next set of questions, right? So I think I'm okay with these. Again, so when you go down to the last question there, it says assuming costs are similar, choose one. Minimal repairs to the existing 9-hole golf course. So that should be necessary repairs to in our terminology that we're going through here. So that's a place. If we go to the next question, so the second point there is conversion of the golf course to natural habitat with an extension to the Stevens Creek Corridor Trail. It doesn't say anything that there's access for people there. I mean, it does in the initial description of trails, but it doesn't say accessible natural habitat. And I think that's what we're doing. I would be concerned that people are saying, oh, we're going to turn it into a natural habitat that, you know, we can't even, there's no amenities. But I mean, you say it up front, but not here when you're asking them what do they prefer. And I think that's important because it is, they're going to say, what am I getting out of this? And so I think that was one of my comments. Yeah, the access. The additional questions that I thought of is so there's two questions, two parts of it. If the necessary improvements are made to the Blackberry Farm golf course, how often would you use it? So this is forward looking. This isn't how much have you done, but would you use it in the future? What is your, and you know, it's a guess. And the second half of that is, if it's moved to a natural habitat, how often might you use it or visit? And so, you know, those are guesses, but I think it's future looking that will give us a sense of, and people may not even know if they would or not, but I think that could give us some additional information there. So those are a couple of questions that that I would have. So I'd like to hear if the other commissioners think those are useful or not.
Yeah, and for this, I agree. I think it's a very good question to add. And maybe we should also let people know it will be a natural habitat, yeah, open to everyone for free. I think when the city staff talking about the revenue, they didn't say we are going to sell tickets for this, so that should be open to everyone for free. Now, if we can add that information to the new question, that will be great. Thanks. And Vice Chair Bigor, what's your comments?
Yeah, absolutely agree. We need to add those two questions that Commissioner Stanek mentioned, very useful. I also want to have a little bit more information, not just adding the Deep Cliff question, but very similar to the question on Blackberry Farm. I would like a question on Deep Cliff just to get an idea of how many people are using this. And then subsequently, the third one would be, okay, do you use both? Do you use this or do you use that? Obviously, whether you want to build it into one question, or you want to make it 3 questions, I'll leave that up to you guys to wordsmith. But I want to know how many people use this Blackberry Farm, how many golf course, how many people use the Deep Cliff, and do they use both? And how often?
Okay, are there any further comments from commissioners?
I have a comment on, not on the specific questions, but on the online survey in general. And that is, we still have a number of people who do not go online. And so I'm wondering if this survey, it's not that hard to have a paper one. Would it be available in paper form at the library or at Quinn Community Center or other places? Is that something that we have considered? Because only having it available online is a limiting factor in and of itself. So that's one of my comments. Does anybody from staff want to comment on that?
It seems like a reasonable request. I'm not sure what the precedent may have been in the past associated with that, and where the best places to offer that would be. Molly or Bratton, do you have some ideas?
Okay, we've done some pop-up events and we've had hand-done surveys then, and there's probably that we could leave the surveys at places like the library, senior center, Quinlan. You know, we could definitely leave it out with the staff that are there, and they might be able to collect it for us. Yeah.
Are the other commissioners good with that? Go ahead, Branton.
I was just going to say, when we typically do a paper survey, just as Susan said, we typically just have one location to turn it in, or two, which would be the senior center or Quinlan.
Yeah, I guess I don't see why we couldn't have more than one, but you know, that's, yeah, and the library is another.
Library is why not? And many times we do it at the library.
Yeah.
It's a common place people come and do.
And have collection boxes there as well. And the other comment I have, which is I feel pretty strongly about, is so you've described a virtual community meeting on June 6th. One of my thoughts, and we had talked about this in the last meeting about the options, was that the only people who know what it's like inside the golf course are golfers. And so I'm wondering if we could have one or two open houses at Blackberry Farm Golf Course where we invite residents to come to walk the golf course. And so that would require shutting it down for an afternoon, you know, a weekday and a weekend. And then we invite people to come out and see it, because, yeah, you can see it sort of when you're walking along the corridor, but people who don't live right next to the corridor are maybe not strolling through there all the time. And so I would like to get residents from all over the city to be able to walk through there and make a judgment about it. And that would, I think we have time, because the survey is going to be up, you know, through all of June and into July. So I would really like to see us be able to hold an open house where we could invite the public to wear their tennis shoes so that they are not, you know, damaging the turf in any way, but that they could actually walk it and see what it is.
I totally agree on that. I'd
like to hear the commissioner's comments.
Absolutely agree on it.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yes, yes.
What does staff think of that? Do you think that's something that we could figure out how to do?
I'll let Molly answer that question. Some of the logistics might be a little tricky, but I don't see any very obvious barriers.
It's definitely something that we are happy to look into.
Yeah, I think it's a big one. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think those are my biggest concerns and comments.
Okay, I see Commissioner Kumarapan have comments.
Yeah, a quick question. So will we have an opportunity to see the final one before go live with all these changes, at least on email? All these survey questions, all these suggestions, and I know that we're not meeting, but I just would like to make sure that we have an opportunity to see it in an email.
I don't think that should be a problem unless someone else sees otherwise.
I would actually interject that we're going to take your feedback and we're going to make tweaks to the questions. And I think that the timeline dictates that we really do need to move forward with this. But we can share with you what we come up with. I don't know when that's going to be done, but we can definitely share.
I'm just asking to share. I'm not asking further review, but I would like to see that one. So many comments are given, and I just wanted to see that. And you don't have to wait for the approval from it, but it'll be good to share it before it goes live. And if it's something completely dramatic, of course, we'll come back. It'll be good to see all these inputs. Or I know you'll be incorporating it, but it'll be good to share it to the commission. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for all the comments. Are there any further questions or? Okay, so looks like we finished this agenda item, and thank you all for your hard work. And thank you for staff for preparing all the materials and answer our questions.
Thank you. Sure.
Okay, so now here's agenda item 2, the monthly update report.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to give a really quick director's update. I only have 3 items to cover. The first is an update from City Council. Council will be considering extending the resolution authorizing the continued remote teleconference meeting of the legislative bodies for the period of May 19th, 2022 through June 18th, 2022, pursuant to the Brown Act at tomorrow night's meeting. So for now, the next Parks and Recreation meetings will be virtual until further notice. In terms of a department update from the Parks and Recreation Department, the Poet Laureate recruitment is live and accepting applications online or at the Quinlan Community Center. And the recruitment is scheduled to close on June 1st at 5 p.m. And finally, just a couple meeting updates. As we mentioned, the community meeting that's planned for Monday, June 6th to discuss the Blackberry Farm Golf Course. And there's going to be a special joint meeting with the Parks and Recreation Planning and Bike and Ped planned for Monday, June 13th to discuss the Lawrence Mitty Park. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you for your update. Are there any update from commissioners? Commissioner Stanek.
Hi, yeah. This part of the commission meeting used to be everybody on the commission would offer their comments on community events that they've attended. And I think it used to be very useful, and I think we've gotten away from that a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and describe the community events that I attended in the last month, and I hope that we will see more of these kinds of reports from everyone, in addition to the mayor's meeting update. So I attended the library expansion, and I know the vice chair was also there, and it was a beautiful, wonderful event, and I hope that everyone can get out there to see the library expansion, and it's a very great amenity in the city. The Cherry Blossom Festival was also very well attended and very well organized, and I hope that a lot of people were able to go out and see that. I also took a visit over to the Creekside Labyrinth just to see how it's doing. There have been times when it gets a little bit messy, and either I've cleaned it up and straightened it out, or we have a Cupertino fairy godmother who has straightened it out. I don't know who that might be, but I've come sometimes when I saw it was messy and went back to fix it, and it's been all completely fixed. This time when I went, I have to report that the labyrinth is completely gone. It is not messed up. It is not, so it's just gone. And I followed up with the director to ask her if Public Works had contacted her about removing it, and the response from Public Works was that, they did not give anyone direction to do that, and they thought it was vandalism. Now, it's completely gone. There is not a stone left, and there were hundreds of stones. So I think we haven't quite gotten to the bottom of what happened to the Creekside Labyrinth, but what it points to is the need for the city to support these labyrinths that we already have with some signage and some maintenance and some clear direction. And I'm hoping to work with our new Director of Public Works to talk about the existing one at McClellan. That's still there. It has some weeds growing up through it. And then also our additional, as we go and look at additional parks, that will be coming to us, and we'll be able to say, well, in this park renovation, we'd like to see a labyrinth. So that's part of sort of ongoing park review. And who knows, maybe as part of if we go to natural habitat at Blackberry Farm, we could have a labyrinth in there. Who knows what or where it would be, or at Memorial Park. I know people are thinking of it there. So I did want to update you that unfortunately, the labyrinth on the east side that Sashi and I worked very hard to put together is not there anymore. The council has been working on the work plan, and the off-leash dogs has been ranked very highly. The group that has come to our meetings so many times has continued to very professionally and courteously work and let council know what their priority is. And it is basically tied with a couple other items for a #1 priority on the work plan this year. So considering where that was last year at number 53, and basically staff said, we know it's on the work plan, but it's so low in priority that we don't have time for it. Things have definitely changed, and the work plan is going to be reviewed. I guess it was reviewed last night at the council meeting. So I think they're done with that for now, but I believe tomorrow night on the agenda again is community grants, and hopefully they'll get to it. It's a continued meeting, and there's a lot of things on that meeting as well. Maybe Molly has an idea if they're going to get to the community grants tomorrow. I think it's on the agenda. Is that right, Molly?
Sorry, I think so. If anybody else knows for sure,
yeah,
you can pipe up.
Okay. It was one of the items that's continued to the agenda tomorrow. But again, if they get to it, it was number 35 last night out of 40 items. So it was pretty clear they weren't going to get to it. The last thing is that I did go over to Sunnyvale because they had a grand opening of their Fair Oaks Park, where they have renovated the entire park. They have new, beautiful turf fields for baseball and soccer. They also have a skateboard park there, which I thought was very interesting. They also opened up their inclusive playground there, so I recommend if anybody is interested in getting more ideas about what inclusive playgrounds look like, since we're going to be having one at Jollyman. And again, the Sunnyvale one was given to Magical Bridge to manage, which we're not doing in Cupertino, but Magical Bridge does have all the experience doing that in most of Santa Clara Valley. So I definitely highly recommend, if you've not been to an inclusive playground, that you go over to Fair Oaks to see it, and it's really remarkable. Very nicely done. They also have a dog park, a fenced-in dog park area there, and I have to say that is the one big disappointment in that park. It is sort of your standard dirt, fairly small fenced-in dirt dog park, which I know that our residents have said they don't want that. That's why they're looking for the DOLA's off-leash areas. And so, but if you go to Fair Oaks, you can see a lot of everything over there. And so I highly recommend doing that. And that's all for my commission report.
Thank you for your updates. A lot of interesting information, and thanks. And Commissioner Kumarappan, have any update to share?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I forgot. I attended the mayor's meeting, and the only thing is that I was attending from New York in the late night. So there's audio issue, so I couldn't completely. So I was just doing a sign things to understand audio. But I did cover one portion which I would like to touch on, which is on the Tech Commission. Raj, you was presenting it, which is very important one. Currently, there are pilots going on the adaptive signal and intelligent cameras in critical junctions to make sure the traffics are regulated. This is on to cater the safety needs. And also there is one pilot they talked about, which I don't know much about it, is the Lehigh Noise Plus environmental pollution deduction. So it looks like there is a pilot. Currently monitoring is in progress. So those are the two updates from them. And there are new proposals for 2023 is that license plate recognition, they call LPR. That's the one in the proposal, in the plan. And then also, like typically they do every year, the cybersecurity outreach, which they're going to plan, given that it is still increasing, so they wanted to. And the third one is chatbot help to answer the questions for the operational side, kind of in the website. Looks like there will be a chatbot which you can answer the questions automatically if the community member have any questions, to interact with it too, so that they can provide. So those are the key things they touched on it. The others I noticed a little bit, and I'm reaching out to those commissioners to get a little more information. And then once it is there, I will send it to the staff to be included in the next, possibly in the minutes. So I'll get back to Kevin and Jessica on that. That's pretty much my end. Sure.
Okay. Thank you. And I have some update, but maybe commissioners already got email from our Vice Mayor Liang Chao. She sent email talking about the hybrid meeting. So as she said, our council meeting, they are allowed not only the audience can go online, but sometimes when there's some council member is maybe on business trip, they can log in online and join the council meeting in future. So that means the hybrid is not only for audience, but also for people on the dais. And she said if commissioners have interest in this option, maybe we can discuss with staff talking about maybe in the future some commissioner on business trip, but we already go back in person, but that one you can set up their computer and join the meeting and join the vote. Yeah. So just want to share this information. Okay, so is there anyone want to share some news, some interesting information? If no, okay. Now it's 9:47, and I call this Park and Rec meeting to end. And thank you everyone for attending and provide a lot of useful information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.